trees are really important, and we forget how important they are. They're life-giving, actually, to our planet. They give us oxygen, and they absorb carbon dioxide, the very thing that we tend to produce too much of here on Earth. They clean the water, shade from the heat. Even in my backyard, not only the birds and the squirrels, but there are tree frogs, little teeny tree frogs with little nubby toes and big eyes. Well, native plants are what were here in the first place before the colonists came over, before people started bringing in exotic plants. They are adapted to their surroundings. They're adapted to the climate in this area. They're adapted to the soils. They grow better. They grow stronger since they're suited for this climate. Red and white oak, maple, beech, white dogwood, eastern redbud, eastern red cedar, eastern hemlock, black walnut is very prevalent in this area, shagbark hickory trees. That's just naming a few. Multiflora rosa has grown. A lot of people think it's a wild rose bush, but actually it killed our native wild roses by just kind of choking. It grows crazily. Somebody brought it over as a decorative plant, and it just grows out of control. There's another one called white garlic mustard, which blooms in the early spring. The early colonists brought it over because they ate it, but it actually changes the composition of the soil so that our native plants will die. It changes the chemical composition of the soil. So those are called invasive species. Well, as far as flowers, I have a little corner around the front and the side of my house where I've allowed some native plants to grow. Some like this. They're called black-eyed Susans. I actually salvaged from a neighbor's field before the field was bulldozed. These have actually multiplied on their own, just from seeds that they will, after they finish blooming, the seeds will fly off and go into the ground. Some other plants, which are native plants, I got from my aunt's and mother's garden. They're called bee balm, so the bees like them. Philadelphia fleabane, it's a kind of a white daisy-like flower, lots of little daisies. That's native to this area. A lot of people regard it as weeds, but it's not. It's a pretty little flower, and the bees love it. And the other thing is cornflower, also known as chicory, a blue flower. I don't have to water it. I just take a few weeds out or grasses that I don't think are as pretty as the flowers, and the flowers just are very happy. Native plants don't need the care and the coddling that other flowers do, and these will just come up by themselves every year. If it's flowering, the flowers are a giveaway. We have evergreens like cedars and spruce. Their needles are always green, although they do shed a little bit here and there. And then there's deciduous trees, also known as hardwoods, which we can really identify a lot easier by the leaves, the shape of the leaves, in the fall, the color of the leaves. So here we have a maple leaf. I believe it's a red maple tree. And there we have a honey locust, which also has white flowers in the spring. It smells good. Here's a black walnut. And we don't eat these walnuts as much as the squirrels. Here we have a spruce twig and a cedar twig, 2 evergreens. If you start identifying the tree and then noticing the bark, then you'll remember which bark goes with which tree. First of all, make sure your treasures, there's an abundance of your treasures. Sometimes, like in the fall, we find pretty leaves, and they've already fallen to the ground. You know, that should be fine. Or if you have a lot of, maybe say violets, little flowers in your yard, there would be plenty of those. I pressed this leaf, just take a little bit of wax paper. They still sell wax paper. And put your leaf or flower in between. You could fold the wax paper so that this won't ruin your book. You're going to put it in a pretty heavy book, right in between the leaves of the book. And if you set more books on top, it'll press it better. And wait a few days and it'll be dried out and it'll preserve it. Another way you can preserve your treasures is to get some newsprint, a little lightweight paper for drawing, and place your leaf or branches underneath, and take a crayon with no wrapper on it. Oh, and just rub over the leaf or the branch. It helps to go in one direction, and you get kind of a neat design. This one, if we turn it over, it's got more lumps and bumps on this side. So we're gonna try, let's try one of these leaves. We can also make crayon rubbings with bark. You just can tape your paper to the tree and take your crayon and rub up against it. So if you know what they are and you want to remember, you can write, for instance, honey locust there, and there's a black walnut leaf. So trees care for us. So we have to care about the trees.